Hello, everybody. We had a setback the very first time with the live, but now we are here and we're back. So my name is Virginia Y. I'm a fashion advertising photographer, and along with George, the producer of the Fashion Photography Podcast, we decided to also do this series, which is something different. It's not the main part of the Fashion Photography Podcast. So if you want to hear more, you can always go to photographypodcast.net and listen to the entire collection of episodes that we already have for you guys. It's called the Fashion Photography Podcast, and you can find more than 340 episodes waiting for you on photographypodcast.net. So, what we are doing here is something very different. We're talking to different artists about their specific photo shoots. So, today I'm having a guest, and while you're checking photographypodcast.net, you can also tell me, where are you based? So just as usual, let me know, where are you right now? My guest today is just about to join me, and I'm very sorry for the first setback, as I said, with the live, but now you've got the opportunity to talk to us live and listen, but also see us here on YouTube, which is very important. I know that you can also see us on Facebook. However, it is really important to know that you can also ask questions live only on YouTube. So now that you know that, let me say hi to our guest today. Hello.
Hey Virginia, hello everybody. My name is Yossi Michaeli. I'm a photographer. I'm based in New York City. Right now I'm in Israel, in my home country, because of all the corona pandemic that's going on. Just taking some time off and waiting for stuff to get back to normal, and happy to be here with you guys.
Awesome. That's great. So tell me about the situation for you right now. Are you shooting?
So my last shoot, honestly, was like the week that they closed New York City. We shot something for Plaza Magazine in New York City, and we had like a major issue that it was the same week, and people were already starting to get like anxious about everything and a little bit hysteric, and rightfully so. So we had like the model just not come to the shoot, and we had to like deal with like 3 hours of just looking for models in the morning, and we ended up getting a model, and she was great, and we shot in Lower East Side. Everybody with masks and stuff already, but it was a great shoot. That was the last time I shot. That was, I think it was about March 16th or something like that, 16, I think it was. And now, ever since, I haven't shot anything, unfortunately. Now I'm in Israel, and actually I'm shooting in 2 days. I'm shooting a cover for Glamour Bulgaria in Israel, in Tel Aviv. So happy to be doing that as well, and looking forward for that.
That's so nice. So the situation now is a little bit complicated. However, it wasn't like that in the past. So we've got the awesome chance to go back in time and talk about some of your previous projects. So there are a couple of projects that you have prepared for us today. And I was thinking that maybe we can start with a male project, let's say. What do you guys think? Shall we start with a male or female project? That's interesting. So let's start with the male one. Okay. So this is one of the photo shoots that you have prepared for us.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me a bit more about it. Is it a photo shoot that you have decided to offer? Was it for a magazine? Is it for your personal portfolio?
This was an editorial that we shot in Iceland, and it was for Esquire China. The fashion director of the agency of the magazine got in touch with me because we shot before in Brazil. We shot in Rio de Janeiro, a couple of stories, and we've been in touch. And then he had this project to shoot in Iceland. So he called me. I was in New York, and I was like, obviously super psyched and super happy because it's Iceland and it's like a dream come true to shoot there. So it was super fun. We had to bring almost everything with us in terms of like equipment, because it's a little bit hard to get stuff there. The guys came from China, the magazine staff, with all the clothes, and they had amazing clothes, as you guys can see, all top brands. We got amazing models as well. Simon Nesman, which is really top guy. He's doing Polo Ralph Lauren and a bunch of other stuff, and he's amazing. And the other one is Ryan Keating, if I'm not mistaken, and he was great as well. So so we flew from New York to Iceland, me and my assistant. We got there in the morning, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we got there in the morning. We met the crew, and then we just headed out straight away with like 2 4x4 trucks, just like scouting the island. It was such an amazing time. So we spent the first day like that, and it was a little bit cloudy and rainy, and then you start to worry because we were supposed to shoot the next 2 days. Then you're getting a little bit like, I wouldn't say anxious, but you're a little bit worried. You're checking your weather channel every hour or so to see how it is. So we scouted, we saw the glaciers, we saw like a bunch of lakes and stuff that we wanted to shoot, like that black beach. There's like a black beach, which is amazing, and rock formations and waterfalls and everything. It was amazing. So we were like really psyched. Then we rested the first day after we finished scouting. We just, took a night in a hotel over there. And then the next morning, we started with this shot. Exactly, what good timing, Virginia.
Awesome.
This is the first shot of the day. So this was like that glacier. It was like a big glacier, and it was a lot of like ice, like a lot of ice formations on the frozen lake and everything. And the light was just starting to come out, and the weather was actually perfect for us. It wasn't like too cold. When it's sunny, it's like perfect. And I don't know, I just threw it out there, guys, would you mind just stepping on those ice in the middle of the lake? And I think that's a big difference when you're shooting male models and female models. I mean, of course you have female models which are like tomboys and they can do whatever, and they're like adventurous, and they would do mostly whatever you ask them to do. But with guys, I feel it's always a little bit easier because they're all like 20-year-old or like teenager guys, and they're like full of adrenaline, and they would do anything. So it was fun. So we put both of them on the ice. We just shot it literally like 5-10 minutes, and we're done with the shot. And then we moved on to the next ones. But the light was over there was just like really so perfect. We ended up not using strobe. I think maybe we used like on 2 or 3 shots, but almost everything was just like amazing natural light with reflectors and bouncing light and stuff like that. But just a fun shoot. So we shot for 2 days, but it was really like short days. So we kind of like we started to shoot, I don't know, like 7 or 8 a.m. done by like 2 p.m. Then we just sat there, in a lake, like by a lake or whatever, just drinking beers and just like scout, walk into waterfalls and stuff like that. So it was really an amazing trip. Like the crew was amazing, and the models and the fashion and everything was just like so much fun. So that's really, for me, one of my favorite shoots ever that I've done so far.
It looks amazing. Tell me, I've never been to the Iceland, so tell me this. You said that you went scouting.
Yeah. The first day we got there. Yeah, go ahead.
When you did that, was it like, oh, that's perfect, and oh, and that's also perfect, oh, and that's also perfect?
It was something like that. Yeah, I mean, we had local guides. We had one in each 4x4. So they kind of like, they took us to like places that, of course, we told them what we wanted before, and they took us to those places. And there was another photographer that came after me and did another shoot or two. So we kind of like the fashion editor, which is amazing. The fashion director, he's really an amazing guy. So he already had everything planned, like what I'm going to shoot and where, with what kind of fashion and what kind of model, and what the other guy would shoot. So it was kind of like really, it was really precise in terms of like, we didn't like waste time of just like scouting random things. Like we knew we wanted a glacier, and we knew we wanted to shoot in the black sand beach with the rock formations over there. And we knew we wanted to shoot in certain places, and other places are just places that we saw while driving, and we said, oh, maybe we could stop here and check it out. And of course it really helps when you have like local guides that already know everything. And the island is beautiful. It's not so small as you would like, as I thought before. For some reason I thought it was a big mistake, but it's like, it took us like the first day we were like on the 4x4 for hours. I think we kind of like rode for, I don't know, we drove for like 4 hours or 5 hours, just like, to get to those more amazing places where we ended up shooting. So yeah, so it was really great. Really one of my favorite shoots.
Was there a location where you were like, well, I don't want to shoot this?
Um, Honestly, not really, because Iceland is really amazing. It is. It's like one of the most amazing places I've been to, and I've traveled a lot. But it's really because you have. I'm a sucker for those kind of scenery. Like I love the mountains and the glaciers. Like I love hiking in them and scouting in them and shooting in them, of course. So for me, it was kind of like everything was really amazing, and it's not too repetitive. Like you can see. Like you have the mountains and you have the waterfalls and you have the glaciers and you have like the beaches and you have like, so it's kind of like a nice mixture, which doesn't get too repetitive. So for me, it was like really perfect in terms of locations.
So if you go there a second time, there will be something different that you can shoot again.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I haven't seen everything for sure, and there's like so many places that are that I ended up not getting to. Like I know they shot after I left. They shot in like the hot baths, kind of like the warm. I think they call it like hot pools or whatever, and like other. And there's like some caves and stuff that we ended up not shooting in. But I mean, I didn't feel that I missed out on anything. I felt that we got a lot of like range of a lot of like nice places to shoot in, and I was like super happy. Yeah.
Is it like super, super cold there?
Um, I mean, during the night or like early morning, yeah, it's you have to go like with the hat and the gloves and the scarf and everything. But like once the sun is out, I'm pretty sure I was kind of like maybe just like a light jacket, and the rest was just like t-shirts and everything. It was great. Like we got lucky. We shot there in September, so it's just right after summer, like when fall starts, but not really. So I guess we got lucky as well. But yeah, it was perfect, honestly. I mean, you can see that the skies over here are perfect. Like the light is really nice. It's just like, it's really kind of like effortless. It was like that shoot, which is amazing when you have days like that. Yeah.
Definitely. It looks absolutely stunning.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the location is really so beautiful.
It's very interesting for me that maybe times are changing. Like, for example, in the past, everyone was so eager to shoot only with strobes and with lighting that they're setting up to make sure that each and every image is going to look cohesive. And now I can see that more and more people are actually sticking to natural light.
Yeah, I feel that too. I feel that I mean, I think it's also a matter of kind of like what's going on with trends that are coming. Like I feel that today, in general, fashion photography has become like more natural and more raw, rather than super
Absolutely agree.
polished and super, like super stroby and super polished. Which I mean, I do think that sometimes strobe is great, even in locations, but generally speaking, I think that's where the aesthetic is going for sure. Yeah.
I think also maybe many people are afraid from the fact that they might change the scenery into looking very fake when they're using also strobes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but some people that's kind of like their aesthetic. So
Yeah.
some people like that. Me personally, generally speaking, I don't. Like I use it more in locations. I would use it when I need to kind of like feel light and I don't have where to bounce or stuff like that. But I feel that it's for me it's limiting in terms of speed as well. If like I have motion and model is like moving around and everything. So I would tend not to use a strobe. But even in this shoot, the Iceland shoot, we shot. I think there was like a couple of shots that I did use strobe just because we didn't have so much where to bounce from, or the bounce was like too harsh, or it wasn't enough. So we kind of like just threw it out there, but like from far away, just to kind of like give it a pop. Usually I go like half a stop more than ambient, not more than that, because I don't want it to look too fake. So I just give it like half a stop more than the ambient reading usually.
Tell me, how many people did you have in your team during this particular shoot?
We were me, one assistant, because we didn't have budget to bring more. Fashion editor, his assistant, and two guides, I think, and two models. Yeah. So
Mhm.
it wasn't a big team. I think we were kind of like probably like around 8 people or something. It was great. Yeah.
Sounds awesome. Yeah. Okay, so tell me, were you the one looking for the assistant? I'm sorry, not the assistants, but the location manager, or was it no, were they approached from the magazine? And if
More
you
from the
have any,
magazine.
yeah, do you have
Yeah.
any tips on, since they are approached from the magazine and we used to talk about strobes and these little things, if it was up on you and you're going to a new location, would you choose to rent your equipment or would you prefer to bring it?
I mean, if it really depends on the budget, and it really depends on how big the project is. For instance, like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, before the Corona thing, we shot in Vegas. So in Vegas, it's easy to rent stuff, and rates are kind of like the same like New York, maybe a little bit higher, but it doesn't make sense to bring anything from New York because you can get everything there. You don't want to deal with like getting on a plane with like 6, 7 bags or whatever of equipment, and plus you'll probably need to pay extra weight and stuff like that. So we ended up getting everything there. But for instance, last year I shot in Aspen, and Aspen has almost nothing or nothing. So we had to bring everything from New York, and then you kind of like get to that. Um, you kind of like get to the point that you have to kind of like think what is worth bringing and what is not. Not
Mhm.
not only because of weight, just because of like hands of like lifting stuff and everything. So it really depends on the location, but generally speaking, like I already kind of like have a system of when I shoot outside. I already know kind of like what I like to use and what I don't. So and I look at the weather, of course, to see if it's cloudy, I would bring more lights, and I would bring maybe a different reflector. I would bring probably a magnum to imitate a sun if I need to, and stuff like that. If I see the weather is going to be amazing, I would bring less lights. Always bring a sound balance and a reflector, like a scrim gym or something. And yeah, and I always do bring a strobe, just like I said, just as a backup, or just like just to open up the face sometimes. But generally speaking, I don't use it so much. Like a lot of times I just bring it and it stays in the bag, and then I bring it back to the rental house, and that's it.
Same here, and I do something additional that is completely pointless, but I do bring a backup of the backup, which means that I have two strobes in my bag and I'm not touching them at all.
I know,
Um,
I thought about that too. There was a time that I used to do that, but now I'm like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm always like that. I'm always like, I'm not gonna end up using it. I'm so sure of that, but I'm gonna bring it anyways. I wanted to talk a little bit about the process of casting your models, especially when we talk about you being on one continent, going to shoot on another, and your models being from a third one. But before that, I would like to say to the people that are looking at us from Facebook, guys, it's great that you're looking at us. I love that. However, you can switch to YouTube because we're going to stay just there. There is a link for you so you can continue looking at the live on YouTube. And in addition to that, you can ask questions there. And for the people that are already on YouTube, ask away, guys. Okay, let's stop the live on Facebook and continue with my question about the casting.
Yeah, I mean the casting. Honestly, it really depends. When it's an editorial, usually, I mean, it depends on. Let's talk about what we did for Esquire China. So for Esquire China, the fashion director like asked me to kind of like send some suggestions. So I ended up and I know their aesthetic. I know that they like the super top model guys, like more editorial, nothing like too commercial, nothing too no like big guys, too muscly guys. Like they like the guys to be really like high fashion and like really editorial. So I got some suggestions. I sent it to them. We kind of like discussed it between us, and we had like a two guy story. So we wanted, the two guys to kind of like complement each other. So in the end, fashion director chose the models. He asked my opinion. He asked his assistant's opinion. Like we just kind of like went back and forth. but we were super happy with both of them. Like both of them were like really amazing guys, amazing models, and amazing guys. Like just to work with. It was just like super fun. It was pretty simple, to be honest. Like because most agencies would love to send their models to shoot for Esquire China in such an amazing locations, and of course the models wanted to do that as well. So actually, we flew one guy from Vancouver, and the other guy, which was Simon, and the other guy I think flew from New York City as well. Yeah.
Okay, and what I wanted, God, I forgot my question. So yeah, I remember. In one of the previous episodes here, the creative process, we talked about two models when we talk about women. However, in your case, they are men. So, do you think there are little tips that you can give us when we are picking two different men for the same editorial? For example, with the women, we were talking that for sure they have to be the same height. Regardless of everything, they have to be the same height. Another tip I remember was that they should look a little bit similar, like sisters. This can always go really well. There are also other tips, but I'm just going to refer the people to the previous episodes of the creative process here. And now I have the same question for you when we talk about male models.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on the project. Like, I don't think they always, like women or men, I don't think they always need to be like similar or like looking a little bit the same, because I think it really depends on what you're looking to do and what you want to do. Sometimes it could be amazing to have like two models and you're doing the same hair and makeup and kind of like, and they look a little bit similar, and it's a nice take, and it's great. It could be amazing. And sometimes you just want them to be kind of like really almost opposites, or almost kind of like one blonde, one brunette, one black, one whatever you want, but one Asian. But it's kind of like, I do agree with you though about the height. Like it doesn't need to be exactly the same, but you wouldn't want to have like too much of a difference, because then it gets a little bit problematic and a little bit tricky for you when you want to position them when both of them are like standing up. And if you have both of them standing up and one of them is like, I don't know, a head taller than the other one, it doesn't look as good. It's a little bit too complicated. So yeah, I mean, I think the two guys that we chose kind of like really worked together as well. Like we shot doubles. I think we just shot like 2 or 3 or maybe 4. I'm not sure, but I think the height thing worked with them, and I think they kind of like complemented each other, and I think they worked together. I mean, for me, it was kind of like it just came naturally, even to position them together. Like there wasn't kind of like one of them is really stronger than the other one. Like although Simon is way more established than Ryan at the time was, at least, but we didn't feel that there's like one star and the other one is kind of like a new face. It's kind of like really came organically, really nice, and worked. But like I said, I think it really depends on the particular project. Yeah.
Do you have any tips for us on posing two male models, or even just one, since this is like the main topic of today's episode? Maybe you can give us some hints.
Well, as you can see in this editorial, we did a lot of like movements, like the last picture you showed, and this one is not, but the next one of Simon, he's like throwing something. Yeah. So we kind of like just like throwing a stone, and this was something that he just did naturally, and we just liked it, and we're like, yeah, hey, wait a second, do it again and stuff like that. And I feel that sometimes it's just like, and that's another thing that I feel in my photography kind of like changed, that when I started, I used to position models more, and today I kind of like enjoy more letting them do their own thing, and kind of like then capturing those moments that I like. And of course I can compliment it and direct it a little bit and tell them, do this again, or do this higher, or do this lower, or whatever. But I kind of like prefer to I like the movement, and I kind of like prefer to kind of like catch the models in their natural acting. It's not really acting, kind of like natural, whatever they're doing, and then just catch that moment which just looks natural and doesn't look too fake or too posed, But of course, even in this shoot that we did for Esquire China, I mean, there's a couple of shots or a few shots that they're more still. But that, in my opinion, for at least, I mean, it was kind of like that picture that we did on when we placed both guys on the iceberg. So we couldn't really have them moving because then they would just like fall down and freeze their asses and everything. But usually it's, for me at least lately, it's been more about kind of like really movements. It doesn't need to be too exaggerated movements, but just like something more natural and something that comes to the model like more natural. Because I feel that when you're trying to pose the model sometimes too much, it really depends on the model as well, but when you're trying to do that, you're losing the essence of the model, and you're losing a little bit of what is good about the model, that particular model, you know, and you make them sometimes feel a little bit more constructed or a little bit more tight, I would say, you know, and you want to do the opposite when you're shooting it. Like you want them to feel like really, you know, happy and natural and like free and of course that's a generalization, but for me that's kind of like the motto I'm going through right now. Yeah.
To be honest with you, I first of all, I think this is like the universal tip: just let your model move, and I really find that very important because through the years, what I have seen from myself in my work is that sometimes when I work with a new model, I know exactly what I want, and I'm like, do this and do that and do this after that, because I know that I'll have fast result and I'll have it immediately and for sure, which is important, especially when you work with a client on set. But I realized that maybe I'm not letting them to free up their body a little bit because I have limited amount of poses in my head, you know? And maybe if they give me also some options, maybe things are gonna get a little bit more interesting. So guys, we are asking you in the comments, do you use movement in your photos? And I would love to see your answers there. We also have some greetings from the audience, Yossi, especially for you.
Yeah, thank you, Will and Antonio. I know. Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you about that, Virginia. But like I said, you know, when you shoot a new face, sometimes it's really hard to just let her do whatever she wants because she doesn't know, you know, and it's not like she can be like a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, like with no experience. So of course you would have to guide her and tell her what to do. And sometimes you would have even like a more established girl that doesn't move. It really depends on the model. So I think, generally speaking, I agree. Just let her do her thing, and then just like fine tune it, direct whatever you need, just like little things. But if she doesn't give you anything, then of course you have to take control of almost everything, and you can still make amazing pictures, but it's just more it's more of a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes more effort on both sides, I think. And it's very important also when you know exactly what you want from your model. So it's also very important to um, don't get in this loophole of always explaining to your models, because sometimes this can be a very new model, but
Yeah.
it can also be a very experienced model. And if you're already in this loophole, you'll be like, I want this and this and that. And they'll be able to give you a bit more. So I think a conversation on set is something very, very important.
Agree, for sure.
Okay. Do you want to move to the second photo shoot that you have prepped for us?
Sure,
And tell
let's
me,
do that.
was there a conversation? Okay, let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's this is an editorial that we shot. It was a cover too that we shot for Modern Luxury in Montauk. Actually, exactly well, almost exactly a year ago. Um, and Montauk, for whoever doesn't know, it's like the tip of Long Island. It's like 3 hour drive from New York City. So this was an amazing day. It was really a fun day. Like I shot already in Montauk like 3 or 4 times, so I already know like the spots that I like. And this was the second or third time I shot there, so I already kind of like knew where I want to shoot, where we can park the van, what we can do, and stuff like that. It was a really long day. The model was like, she didn't get there on time. Like, you know, everybody was like ready at 7 a.m. in New York City waiting, and the model didn't get there. We ended up like picking her up, and we ended up getting to the location, I think probably at around, I don't know, 11:30 a.m. or something like that. But she's such an amazing model, Madison, and the fashion is amazing. Fashion director of the magazine is amazing. So we got there we didn't have hair to worry about, so it was only makeup, so that was pretty fast. And yeah, we just started banging stuff. We just started shooting. We shot first on top of the cliffs, like what you're seeing right now is in the beach. That's like I think that's the last picture I shot of the day. As you can see, also the light. This was kind of like the beginning. Yeah, the more these were kind of like more. Yeah. So this was the cliff on top of. There's cliffs and then there's like rocks going down, and you can see the ocean in the background. So we started shooting there, up there. In the vegetation, like you can see that vegetation, and like I spoke with you about that as well. Like that vegetation is a vegetation that has poison ivy, and that shoot like made me go to the hospital a week later with like blisters all over my legs from poison ivy, and I had to get steroids and stuff like that. And and our great producer got ticks, because there's also ticks over there, so he had to get like some shots as well. And our fashion director was pregnant like towards the end, so we were all worried as well, if something, God forbid, would happen because of all. I mean, Montauk is known for that, for Lyme disease, and like there's ticks and poison ivy and stuff like that, but it's really such an amazing location. I'm happy on this shot that you're showing now that nothing happened to the model, because after we did that and I got the poison ivy and everything, we started to worry, oh, what if she gets something and everything. But this was actually the first shot of the day. The sun is up. It's like almost, that's probably around noon or something. So when something like that, like when I have to shoot during the middle of the day when the light is harsher, I try to, I mean, of course I can use a sound bounce and kind of like cut the light, but when I'm doing a full body, it's more complicated. I don't want to have so much of the shadow showing in the picture. So what I a lot of times do, not a lot of times, but what I do occasionally is just have the model lay down, and then the light just hits her perfectly, because you don't get so many shadows underneath the nose and underneath the mouth and stuff like that. So this was one of the first shots we did of the day, and then we kind of like moved on. We shot a few shots up there, then we went down to the beach, and in the beach, yeah, that's another shot that I made the model climb a cliff over there, but she was super great. Like I said, I mean, I always try that. If I see that something could be interesting for me, I throw it out there and I see if the model is willing to do it or not. So yeah, she was great. She was really great. And you can see when you pass a little bit more pictures, you can see that some of the pictures we just later have, we kind of like, that reflects to what we spoke about earlier, just let her do her thing in terms of like the movements. So we had a few shots there that she was just like moving around and doing her thing, and then we kind of like just capture that. Yeah, like this one, for instance. And there was another like one or two. Yeah, and I mean, the fashion was really great. The model was great. It was just really a fun day. And the light we got there in the end of the day, like there's 2 or 3 shots in the end of the day over there. It was just like perfect lighting. It was a little bit even like this one, I think. Yeah, this one was the last shot. This one was the one before the last shot. So the light is like really perfect. There's like a haze in the background. It was a little bit tough to bounce back, and I try to kind of like eliminate, not go and get the strobe too lighter, because when I use a strobe, me personally, I always see a difference. Like maybe some people, they don't see it and they would still think, oh, it's amazing light. But I see a difference, and I always think that the natural light gives me something more beautiful. So over here, we just bounced a little bit, whatever we had, which was almost 0, but my assistant got really close and bounced a little bit. I always use white, me personally. I use silver only when I have almost nothing, and then I use the silver just to bring a little bit. Or if the white is not enough, we can use the silver and just go back a little bit, like not so close, because silver gets the face really shiny and contrasty. And yeah, again, it's something, if you like or not, it's a matter of taste. But for me, I prefer it more like the way I shot it here, for instance. So yeah, I mean, lucky day, great day. I mean, whatever happened later the week, after that with the blisters and the poison ivy, still, I mean, for me, when I look back now, I'm like, yeah, it was worth it.
It's amazing.
Nothing happened to me.
Yeah. I don't think anyone will know how stressful it was for you afterwards.
Yeah. No, I mean, even this shot is kind of stressful because that's like this last shot because you can see the light like fading away,
Yeah.
and behind you can see behind her there's like a little bit of like cliffs and mountains. So the sun is right above there on the right hand side if you're looking at the picture right now, and you can see the sun coming down and down and down, and you have like literally like a minute or so, and you're just like clicking and clicking and and then you start like getting all the adrenaline, with your assistant like go closer and bring it and stuff like that. And I love it. It's nice. It's fun. It's fun when it's over and when you shoot it, when it goes well, of course. But yeah, it's part of our business, and it's part of actually what is the most enjoyable about our profession, I feel.
Do you know in advance what kinds of photos and what number of photos you need? Do you have like a
You
visual?
mean you mean like how many pictures we're going to shoot throughout the day, like how many looks?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
I
how
mean when we
many
shoot.
photos you're gonna end up with in the magazine?
Yeah, we know. I mean, usually we know. Like the magazine tells us we have 10 pages, we have 12 pages, we have whatever, and then we can kind of like together, kind of like decide. Oh, okay, if we have 10, let's do. Or let's say we have 12 pages, let's do 8 vertical and like 2 spreads, stuff like that. And then they can kind of, because they already know like if they like to open the editorial with a spread or with a single page and stuff like that. And it really depends on the magazine, but usually I always know exactly like, or more or less how many. And we try to shoot a little bit more. We try to shoot like 1 or 2 shots more. And a lot of times, like the fashion editor would say, yeah, let's shoot 1 or 2 more, and try to get us more pages. And it happens a lot, which is great when it does. And when it doesn't, it's a little bit annoying because you spend time and you love that picture, but it's not in. But it's okay. It's part of it.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's true. I was wondering, you're breaking up a little, so if you have
I'm
any
sorry.
other tabs open, please be careful about that. You can turn them off if you're not using them. And what I wanted to say is that you mentioned the great fashion and the clothes that looks absolutely amazing. And I was wondering, how much control do you have over the pieces that were picked for this particular editorial?
0, but
Yeah,
it's
that's
all,
what I
yeah.
expected.
Yeah, but I love, honestly, I mean, I've been shooting a lot with this crew, and I love shooting with them. It's always like amazing fashion. They always get like amazing clothes, and they're like super fun to work with. So it's kind of like, for me, it's really effortless. They even, if we run into some trouble sometimes with the light or with time or with whatever we do, but it's just like I trust their vision so much. It's always kind of like, we're talking about it before. Of course, we're like, they approach me, they tell me, for instance, for this, the fashion director told me, we want to shoot something for fall winter that would look a little bit futuristic, a little bit kind of like she landed on, that scene, the end of Planet of the Apes, the first movie.
Yeah.
When you have like, the Statue of Liberty on the beach, part of it. So kind of like we wanted a beach or like a place that would look like really almost like futuristic, but at the same time like something really deserted, and something kind of like really like that reference that we were talking about. So yeah, we were thinking about locations, and she sent me a mood board of what she wanted and everything, and I already shot in Montauk. And she saw that as well, and she liked that beach. So we said, yeah, we can make it look a little bit cooler and a little bit like more cooler. I mean, in terms of tones, not in terms of like nice or not. In terms, because the first shoot I did there was like all springy, so it was all warm and everything. And this we kind of like, so this is a little bit of filter, to make it a little bit cooler in tones. But we love that rock formations over there, and we like the cliffs, and we like all the stones on the beach. Like that beach is really amazing. It's really amazing to shoot in. Actually, I shot another editorial exactly on this beach, but it's going to look totally different, and it's coming out in July. So yeah, but it's going to look totally different. We did something like with mirrors and stuff. Yeah, really.
Probably we'll be able to see it on your Instagram account.
Yeah, in a month or so.
Awesome.
Yeah, but this was just, yeah. So I mean, they could choose all the clothes. They give me first kind of like the mood board, and then when they start pulling, and they always manage to pull really top brands and amazing clothes. So when they have everything ready, they send it to me. I have a look. When we get to the location, they put everything out. We go, me and the fashion director, she shows me, what she likes to shoot, what she prefers to shoot first, or what her top 10 looks of the day, let's say. And then she always has extras in case something doesn't work or we don't, it doesn't fit well or whatever. So that's how we start the day. And then I kind of like, we together, me and the fashion director, we kind of like think, okay, this dress let's do on the beach. This dress let's do on the cliff. This outfit let's do laying down, and so on.
What I loved about the podcast is that people can see very different type of approach from many different photographers. However, I find it very funny when we've got the same approach to something, because I do exactly the same thing. Let's go over the comments. So here we've got a comment where Will Navarro
Hey,
says,
Will.
"When I yeah, when I shoot
Yeah, Will
with an
assisted me on a great shoot in LA
oh,
years ago.
that's awesome. Oh, that's so
Yeah,
cool.
and he's a great photographer now. He shoots sports. I follow his work.
Ooh.
When I shoot with a new face model from an agency, I tend to direct. You should say it because yeah, you should read it.
Okay, it's totally fine. I tend to direct and post for the model first, letting them feel comfortable with the movement and understanding their own angles. I think this is so very important. And also,
Yeah,
um, voicing this is also very important because it can be very helpful for your model for their next photo shoot. When you're like,
yeah,
this angle is perfect for you, or this thing that you're doing is just awesome. I think saying this, it's very, very helpful for them.
yeah. And I think
And
Will has a good point that understanding their own angles, because each girl has a different angle and could work in different positions and different ways that you can shoot her. Some of them, when you shoot them from below, they look amazing, and some of them it just don't go there. It
yeah,
doesn't work. So it's like, so it really, you have to kind of like. I mean, another thing that I look at before I go to shoot is I take a look at her book, at the model's book, and I see the angles that work better for her. Like I see if she has a lot of pictures, from above, from below, or whatever. And
yeah,
so that already kind of like helps a little bit to kind of like get the understanding. But of course, it's not the same. It's much better when you go there, when you start shooting, and then you start seeing what works better for you. So
I
that's a
love
good, that's a
this.
great point. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Annie is actually having a question for you. Hi, I'm an A-level student in photography, and I just started my new project, fashion photography. Do you have any tips where to get or borrow clothes from for a shoot? Love your work. Okay, if you want to, you can go first, and I also have a little bit of
Yeah, of
tips.
course. Thank you, Annie, first of all. And about borrowing the clothes, I mean, when I first started shooting, before it was for magazines, it was kind of like, just like doing tests for model agencies and stuff like that. Um, I got a stylist usually that was working on his or hers portfolio as well. And that stylist was probably usually an assistant to a big stylist, so he can use those clothes that they shot a day before or they're going to shoot a day after for a different publication or whatever. So that's one of the things you can do. Another thing you can do is approach some showrooms and see if you can get stuff from them. Some of them would lend you when they like your work, because they have, let's say, new up and coming designers that need new shots, or using their clothes. So that's another approach. I know there's another approach that people do, is just like buying clothes, using them, and returning them. So you can do that too, but then you just have to
Yeah.
worry about not, yeah. And
Yeah.
plus, usually you don't get like the top. And when you do that, usually you wouldn't get like the most recent
Top brands. Yeah.
brands, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And in
Good luck,
addition to
Annie.
that, I would also add for Annie that in most of the fashion photography universities, schools, and so on, there are also this type of fashion programs where people are learning how to sew, learning how to do a styling or something like that. So collaborating with those people is also very important for you, in my personal opinion, because it means that tomorrow when they go out working for
Exactly.
someone, if they need a photographer, you will be the first they'll think of. So I think this is also something that you should think about, Annie. But for sure, my advice would be find another person who's going to take care of the clothes. Because if you're starting photographer, you've got other things to worry about. You don't also need to worry about the clothes. Okay. And Antonio says, Yossi, how would you get consistency throughout your work in all the different locations and different light situation in order to get your signature look? Love your work.
Hey, Antonio. How do I get consistency? I
Yeah.
mean, look, when I look, it's great. It's funny because I moved an apartment like a month ago, and when I packed all of my stuff, I started to see all of the magazines that I shot years ago, let's say 10 years ago, and the the shoots that I did 10 years ago, and they look so different than today. Some of them, of course, I mean, which is a good thing, but some things I do feel that kind of like stay the same. Um, in terms of, I mean, I don't know how the consistency really comes. Like for me, it's kind of like I don't really think about it. I just when I shoot outside, I have a certain kind of like lighting that I like. Um, so I guess that adds to kind of like the consistency. But look, I like light. Like I'm not. I mean, of course, when you shoot like in a cloudy day, it's way easier. Sometimes you don't have to worry about shadows and highlights and stuff like that, and it could look amazing. But sometimes you're missing that punch. Let's say you want like something more contrasty or more colorful. It really depends on the project you're doing. So I embrace both. Like when I have a day which is cloudy and it works with what I want, that's perfect. It makes my life even easier because I don't have to cut light. I don't have to bounce sometimes. But I love really the light, which is kind of like that summery, not really harsh, but like that summery light and really blue skies and like when the colors pop out. I like that too. So it's kind of like, I don't know like how the consistency comes, but I guess it's after I'm done shooting, I don't mess up with the images so much in terms of like filters and stuff. Like I don't add so much. I can tone it down a little bit in terms of like colors a little bit. Let's say more cool or more warm and stuff like that. Usually I don't go like super contrasty. I try to keep it like a little bit more natural looking. So I guess maybe that brings the consistency in, even when the lighting conditions are different. But there's certain hours that I know I can't shoot, or I mean, if I have to, of course, then I'll need to think about like ways to get the result that I want, which is cutting the light using a sound bounce, having the model lay down, like I said, stuff like that. And then I can kind of like get around that because I don't want to have an editorial with kind of like a really soft light and let's say an afternoon light, which is amazing. And then another shot, which is, like really harsh and you get like really strong shadows here because then it's like all over the place. So I try to get the consistency in that sense. I hope that answers the question. I don't know,
think
but
it's a
honestly,
great advice
yeah.
because if people try to focus on having a consistency in one particular editorial, if they do this every time, sooner or later they'll have consistency throughout the projects. Because in my personal opinion, having particular style is based on your everyday life, everything that you learn, everything that you do, everything that you like in your home, for example. This is something that builds you as a person, but also as a creative. So in my personal opinion, if you haven't found your particular style, guys, I think it's going to be great if you do like a Pinterest board, let's say, and just gather all of the images that you love. If you do that, this is not your imagery, these are not your creations. However, you know what you like already.
I agree with you, Virginia, but let me just add another thing that I
Go
feel.
ahead.
Yeah, I feel that, like I'm talking personally about myself, for instance. I get bored, not get bored, but that's not the right word, but I get like, after I would shoot like a certain kind of lighting or a certain kind of like aesthetics, I don't know, for a few shoots or a few months, I would kind of like I would like to kind of like break it up a little bit or kind of like, explore something else and not like just because it's really easy to do something that, that looks good and you like it, but then you just kind of like relax and just do the same thing all over again because it's safe, because, it's going to work, it's safe and that's it. But I think it's good to kind of like embrace even those challenges when you have like, I don't know, bad lighting all of a sudden and you need to make it look good. Or if you have like, the weather all of a sudden, screws up your plans or whatever. Or even to use like new accessories and new kind of lighting. There's a shoot, for instance, that I did last year that we shot like in a hotel room, and I brought kind of like it's almost kind of like it's an A1 Profoto A1. It's kind of like almost camera flash, but not really. And we kind of like, I just wanted to do something a little bit different. And it was a little bit hard for me in the beginning, like when I shot that, because I wasn't used to this aesthetics. So when I shot it, I was like, I don't know, I'm not feeling it, something is missing. And I'm a lot of times like that when I shoot, like I look at it in the beginning and I'm like, I don't know, something is missing. But but it builds on you, and people ended up loving that shoot, and me too. I love that shoot today. But I'm saying don't be afraid. I don't think we should be afraid to kind of like explore new things and explore like new techniques or new lighting or new everything, because if we just get kind of like relaxed with what we do, we'll end up just doing the same thing all over again. We'll end up being bored, and people probably as well. It's always good to kind of like challenge yourself, I feel.
I love this. I think it's actually the perfect end of this conversation because it's very inspiring. Thank you so much for being with us today. It was truly lovely to have you.
Thank you so much, Virginia. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys, whoever joined us.
Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. I wanted to say that if you are staying till the end, you'll find out who's going to be the next guest. So maybe it's time for you to understand. But before that, I want to remind you that there are a whole 2 podcasts with Yossi on our website, which is photographypodcast.net. And you don't have to write it down right now. It's linked in the show notes on YouTube. So you can just take a look at the video and what's going on below it, and you'll see link the episodes on the Fashion Photography podcast. And who's going to be the next guest, right? This is what you're interested in. I can see that you guys are active, saying thank you to Yossi, great podcast, thank you. Well, this is not the entire podcast. This is just part of the podcast. This is like a whole new series that we're doing. But if you want to listen to the entire podcast, there are more than 340 episodes, and they're all linked in the Fashion Photography Podcast website. You guys have to know that next Monday we'll be here, same place, same time. And now is the time for you to understand who is going to be the next guest. Her name is Saskia Lausen, and if you want to be prepared for the next Monday, all you have to do is to go and listen to our podcast together with Saskia. That is on photographypodcast.net. Thank you guys again so much for being with us. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the podcast. And if you decide to share it with your friends, you're more than welcome to do it. Thank you again, and I'll see you next Monday.